Today on Locked On Rockies, a series split with Houston as the club goes through two very different games. Some timely and good offense in game one to a season low in game two. We'll take a split, but what does it all mean? We'll talk about it right here on Locked On Rockies.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 19th day of July in the year 2023. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, well, guess what? You are in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, is talk about the Colorado Rockies. You can find us also on Sirius XM and your favorite streaming services and the Sirius XM app. You just search Locked On Rockies, and on the Sirius XM app, you can look Colorado Rockies up, and you can get all your play-by-play action of the Colorado Rockies. Check us out there. And also, we are on YouTube, where you can be part of the show when we go live. You can also drop your Rockies hot takes in the comments section below. Tell us what you think about the Rockies. Tell us what moves you think they should make as we head to the trade deadline. And on today's episode of Locked On Rockies, we are going to break down the series with the Astros. We're going to talk about the highs, the lows, the good, the bad, and is CJ Cron continuing to increase that trade deadline value, especially as he hits another home run in the finale. Talk about the bullpen being good in that bullpen game as well. And lots more here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Before we get all to that, though, swing for the fences on Sleeper Picks, and you can win up to 100 times your money. Download the Sleeper app and use promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in 30 states. Check out Sleeper today. So going into this series, I was a little worried. After the last series, the Rockies didn't necessarily keep getting blown out, but what we saw in one of the games against Houston, we saw again in game number two. Brandon Bielak is just knows how to pitch to the Rockies. They just simply have not been able to get anything going against this guy, even in both games where they get multiple walks. It's frustrating, especially when your pitcher is basically going back and forth within a pitcher duel throughout the whole game. Honestly, one of a loss for the first time in a while for Austin Gomber. I believe if I remembered on the broadcast hearing correctly, Gomber, the team 11-18 when Gomber starts this year. Gomber above 500. Gomber showing, lots of maturity and showing, some great value, being the only consistent piece left in the Rockies rotation, and someone who's been good for a while. And Gomber was good in this one. Obviously, the end and getting tagged there is a bummer, but in a lot of ways, you got to be just as frustrated with the offense. I mean, Gomber had a minute. I mean, Gomber, it was a 1-0 ball game. The Rockies had, were able to draw some walks off of Bielak there. They had some timely hitting in the game before, but that simply wasn't the case here yet again. This back-to-back 4 strikeout times. You get 4 strikeouts of the Rockies in both attempts. Striking out the Rockies 8 total times in 13 2/3 inning works against the Rockies, only allowing 3 hits in that time as well. He also hit somebody in the game today. So, I mean, 4 walks for the Rockies overall in this one, and no runs, no earned runs, and nothing given up from Brandon in this one. So it's unfortunate. That's when you're looking at one of the big issues. Austin Gomber has been able to keep you in games, but you can't be giving your season low in hits at home, especially against it. And it's kind of surprising, because you look at the numbers overall for Bielak here. He's a Bielak, I think maybe it might be Bielak. Opponents going into the first game against Colorado for Houston were batting .286 against him with a whip of 151. He's now lowered that after this game against Colorado here and a start against Seattle to a .263 average against a whip of 140. And Still, getting some of those strikeouts, but not clean, not overall clean. Multiple walks. He hit 2 batters in Seattle. He's hit a batter there, and again, the Rockies getting runners on even without the hits. It just hasn't he hasn't dominated other teams quite like he's dominated the Rockies. You look at some of his other starts, and it just looks like maybe this start back in May against Oakland was the last time he's kind of and the White Sox here, back-to-back starts for him where he looks kind of as dominant as he did against the Rockies there. Because in other games for him, it's multiple runs given up in let's see, what is this? 4 of his last 6 starts for Brandon Bielak, he has given up at least 2 earned runs. That's against Cincinnati, Cleveland, Toronto, and Seattle. But that's not the case for the Rockies. And outside in those 6 games as well, giving up 4 home runs in those 6 games. And the Rockies weren't able to tag him for anything. So it's unfortunate to lay such stinkers against a guy that hasn't necessarily dominated the rest of the league, but has certainly shown that he can dominate the Rockies. The Rockies just weren't able to figure out make any sort of adjustments there, and lots of weak contact, lots of the Rockies did get slightly unlucky with some hard hit balls to short here in game number 2. But even though that this was a bummer of game 2, you'll take a split against the Astros, and you'll take a stretch to start the season winning 3 out of your first 5 ball games here of this part of the season before you got to go to a place that's really hard for the Rockies to play, but with an opportunity to continue to do some damage and add to the Marlins early season spiral. We'll look ahead to that later on this week here on Locked On Rockies. But coming up here in segment number 2, I want to talk about the bullpen in game number 1. Really good stuff. That's, I think, exactly the Rockies able to lean on that bullpen in this game because, a little bit of that break, the All-Star break, and it was it was really good to see. I mean, for the Rockies to have to turn to a bullpen game in a game where they use 7 pitchers, they end up winning that ball game. That's a lot of arms to use, absolutely. But it's good to see how well that the team was able to perform there in that bullpen game. We'll also talk about some of the highlights on offense for the Rockies as well coming up here in segment number 2. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about some of the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Dave. Our friends at Dave are going to help you with some finances, get you into a little bit better of a spot here. At one time or another, we all need a little financial help. That's why Dave is great. Dave can get you cash when you need a hand between paychecks and can help you build credit by setting extra cash advances on time. Dave is the banking app that's leveling the playing field. When you download Dave, you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less, no credit check, no late fees. It's part of Dave's extra cash account advance, the money you need with no interest and then settle up later. Extra cash gives you more money to buy groceries, fill your tank, finally get your car repaired, or catch up on bills without having to wait for your next paycheck. You can even build credit when you settle up on time. So if you're in a pinch, get the help you need by downloading Dave. Download Dave today at dave.com/MLB. That's dave.com/MLB, and you could get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less. No credit check, no late fees. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com/MLB. For terms and conditions, go to dave.com/legal. Eligibility criteria and instant transfer fees applies. Banking services provided by Evolve, member FDIC. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. Breaking down the Colorado Rockies series against the Houston Astros here, and talking about some of the we talked about, unfortunately, the Rockies coming up short against the Astros there in game 2. But let's focus on some of the positives and let's focus on some of the good things, especially when the Rockies did send a bullpen game out there against the Astros, and the bullpen was good. There was 8 hits given up by the club overall. 3 of them were given up by Jake Bird there in the start, and that's where that was where all the damage was done in that first inning there for the Astros. But the good news is the Rockies offense able to bounce right back, even things up, and make it a tie ball game, with Kris Bryant finally hitting another, getting back in there and getting in a nice little groove, and finally contributing by the long ball at home as yet again. I know they've been few and far between. And we'll kind of focus more on this in the positive, or in a different section, but the Rockies need to continue to see multi RBI, multi hit, and slugging games increase for Bryant. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the Rockies sending 7 pitchers to the rubber in a game against the World Series champions and an over 552 and 43 Astros team that can really hit the ball, albeit banged up a little bit for a team, but a team that certainly has a lot of offensive capabilities. And the bullpen shows up. Tommy Doyle throws 2 scoreless innings, 2 hitless innings as well, only allowing up 1 walk. Fernando Abad, before I believe he was DFA'd, I think today, would let up a hit and a walk, but no earned runs there. Gavin Hollowell comes in for an inning and 2/3, allowing 2 hits and a strikeout. Pierce Johnson gets a couple of strikeouts after giving up a couple of hits. Daniel Bard, clean inning. Justin Lawrence, clean inning. There's your recipe right there for how you want your bullpen to go, and how the Rockies were hoping the bullpen was going to work for the Rockies, and hope it does, depending on possible moves made. Is there's Bard, there's Lawrence, there's your 1-2 punch. 2 pitchers that I think can be quite difficult to hit and quite difficult to evaluate. I think having those 2 back to back is something right at the end of games is something that is a plus for the Rockies in late inning ball games. Justin Lawrence now on the season, continuing to have a really, really nice season, 2.57 ERA and 49 innings pitched, 51 strikeouts in that time, a whip of 1.082, 3-3 on the season with 6 saves on the season. And also this year, he's got only the 22 walks, 51 strikeouts to 21 walks. So tied his last year total in terms of walks, but he's also pitched 7 more innings and a career high for him. So not too big of a surprise there. But the key moments and the key there for the Rockies in that game and in that win was not only the bullpen, but the bullpen limiting the walks. The team only, out of 7 pitchers, all of which and at some points for the Rockies have had issues in terms of command and walks, only 2 given up. And that instead flipped, where the Rockies are getting strikeouts from multiple pitchers there, with Bird, Hollowell, Pierce Johnson, Bard, and Lawrence all getting at least 1 strikeout in that appearance. A lot of arms to use in that game, and certainly one of those ones, as it started, could have felt like it was going to get out of hand. But you got to give props to the bullpen there, and the bullpen does add Brent Suter back into it, as he is comes. I was right there. Fernando Abad was designated for assignment, as Brent Suter, who we saw today, looked it happened, even though it's kind of a bummer. You get you go out there, you do your job, and there's the DFA. It's kind of the life of a bullpen arm and a veteran arm, and one that isn't necessarily a dominant arm at that. But a big boost and a big lift for a bullpen that's seen a lot of work, and a bullpen group that knows how talented and knows the capabilities that they have, especially when we saw them at the beginning of the season. So, and it was unfortunate like we said, frustrating to see the offense not back up the solid pitching today. Austin Gomber's final line here against the Astros in game number 2 is 6 innings pitched, gives up 4 earned with the home run there, 5 strikeouts in that one, and no walks. That's now 3 straight games for Austin Gomber without allowing a walk, and he's increased his strikeout to walk ratio to 63 and 30. So it was still solid. The Rockies were solid at pitching this 2-game stretch. Just one bad pitch, and a couple of bad moments there for Austin Gomber, and you could see how upset he was after that. Houston was able to connect there for that home run, and good for it. It's good, I think, for Gomber to kind of show. You see that emotion from Gomber, and how serious he's taking it. He knows how much He has to lead this team right now and lead his team every time that he steps on the bump, especially when you're going up against a team like Houston. And he was doing that. And then just with the way the offense was going, and then when you see that ball leave the yard, and when you and after you, at that stage in the game, that the emotions are going to be a little bit high and the frustration is going to be there, because the offense certainly didn't do anything to help out Austin today. The unfortunate case for some of these Rockies starters, where they've kept them in the ball games, they've kept it close the entire time, but 4 runs just simply too much for the Rockies to overcome in the finale there. But one encouraging good sign, one thing that is in terms of offense that was great to see, the Cron zone back in action. CJ Cron continuing to swing a nice bat here. And how much do we think that is that going to influence the trade needle? Is he going to go from a low on the priority order to someone that is going to be really interesting on the trade deadline, as we continue to focus on and continue to monitor that as we inch closer and closer to the trade deadline? We'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit more as we look ahead to Miami, and then recap everything else in terms of Rockies baseball, all on today's episode of Locked On Rockies, coming up here in segment number 3. But let's talk about the title sponsor of this show, and let's talk about the new way to play daily fantasy. If you want the chance to win more money with less picks, head to Sleeper, where you can win up to 100 times your money on just 2 or more fantasy baseball picks. All you got to do is go through the series of stats, go through the players, as you can see here on the screen. You can your entry slip can have stuff like, will Shohei Ohtani hit more than 1 home run? Will Elly De La Cruz hit a home run? Maybe you want to go with stolen bases. Maybe you want to go CJ Cron home runs in the next game. You can see it all here at Sleeper and check out and build your line, your game slip. And when you do, you can get up to 100 times and $100 match on your first deposit when you use our promo code. All you got to do is head to the promo code. When you download Sleeper, use the promo code Locked On, and you'll get up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. You can see Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 30 states. So when you want to win some money, go check out sleeper.com/promo/locked on, and you can get that $100 match on your first deposit. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. We are your daily Colorado Rockies podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout outs to all my everydayers out there. Shout outs to all you Rockies fans tuning in and joining up and hanging out with the show. It's been an awesome time seeing the comments, seeing what you guys think about the Rockies, hearing what folks got to say about the Colorado Rockies. And we're close to that 500 subscriber mark. If you subscribe to Locked On Rockies, you'll know when the episodes post on YouTube. You know when we'll go live. You can be part of the Locked On Rockies YouTube chat and lots more. You can also check us out on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. All you got to do, search Locked On Rockies or Colorado Rockies. Get all your play-by-play action and all sorts of great baseball coverage on there on the SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. One bright spot for the offense today is the Rockies were very close to being held to just 1 hit. The Rockies do suffer their season low in hits. Yes, this was a game at Coors Field, but CJ Cron hits a ball to dead center field yet again and leaves the yard. His 2nd home run in 3 games. I believe it's his 3rd home run in 4 games if you're going back even further, going up to get his double digits, now 10 home runs on the season for Cron. If CJ Cron keeps hitting balls to center field, Coors Field be darned. He is going to be of interest. It won't be a big haul, but the best possible outcome in terms of increasing the trade value and increasing what the Rockies might be able to get from Cron is for him to keep you being the power option for the Rockies. As we are talking about and noticing, and after the All-Star game in the second half, if you notice, Elias Diaz is off to a bit of a scuffle if Elias Diaz's offense kind of cools off a little bit, I think that's going to impact his trade value as much as a hot CJ Cron is going to influence his trade value. Comments from Dick Monfort, I believe, from his mailbag, seem to believe that Elias Diaz might not be going anywhere, though, because of the winning the MVP of the All-Star game. Well, that's going to be more topics for another pod. But the best possible case scenario for I believe the Rockies, and if CJ Cron wants to be a part of a contender, I think CJ Cron's pretty happy that. I think he falls into the camp of people that's perfectly happy playing for the Rockies and being here and filling his role, but teams are going to want a guy that can hit the home run. And the best part about it is even though he's still striking out, as he is known to do, a strikeout in this one, 2 strikeouts against the Yankees. Didn't strike out in game 1 there against the Astros. But if he can keep slugging, especially if he can not only keep hitting, but getting extra base hits and home runs and driving runs in, he's going to be more valuable than people think. He will be a good DH first base option that you can get for a low risk investment. I mean, when you're looking at CJ Cron overall, it's got to take a little bit more, I think, from CJ. If he goes on a nice, real hot 2 weeks here, though, I think he has the highest potential of trade value increase over the Rockies veterans. I think out of the most likely ones to be traded, that is, I think he is the one that is most likely to build up his value and get into a point where he can. Where he can make some teams really sit there and want to take a chance and go for it here. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent there in 2024. So I mean, he certainly is. It just makes a lot of sense to see if he's able to make an impact and able to help a team get some power in their lineups coming forward. Because I mean, it's not like CJ, the Coors Field folk might knock it, but when you're going dead center, Coors Field, in the moments that he, off the pitchers that he has gone a yard off of lately to start the second half, that's the type of stuff when you're an exec, you're going to be raising your eyebrows at. And it might be the right type of bat, exactly what you might need for a certain team to add a little bit of extra thump into their lineup for something that won't break the bank. I mean, I like I said, I think the trade ceiling can only go up for CJ Cron. And we'll see truly how active the Rockies are going to be. We'll dive into more of the trade discussion there and some more things from Patrick Saunders' mailbag that I think was pretty interesting from the post. We'll dive into that coming up tomorrow during the off days. We continue to look ahead and look towards the trade deadline to see if the Rockies will in fact be sellers and actually make some deals and actually able to make some deals for these veteran players on the Rockies. But overall, unfortunately, the Rockies don't get a series win against the Astros. The Astros go 3-1 against Colorado on the season, exactly what they're looking to do. Take down and beat a bad team and help themselves keep fighting for their playoff spot, their division spot. Rockies, hey, the bullpen day wasn't a disaster, and some good timely and good hitting there from Ezequiel Tovar and the Rocks yet again in that one, where he continues to still go through some growing pains, but continues to shine. I think as we saw Ezequiel Tovar getting an RBI there, going 1 for 3. Good day at the dish in that first game for Ryan McMahon as well. A couple of hits. And, of course, Kris Bryant leaving the yard. But the big storyline, big takeaway is the Rockies just getting dominated by Brandon Bielak again. And but the Rockies also surviving and winning a bullpen day against the best. So, hey, that's baseball. You'll take that at the end of the day. Rockies now head to Miami. We'll be looking ahead to that off day tomorrow. We'll preview the series. look ahead, and so much more coming up on the next episode of Locked On Rockies, because that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all so much for joining us here and making us your first listen every day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming service. You can also find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. You can find us on SiriusXM and the SiriusXM app. Want to shout out to all my everydayers out there. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you for tuning in and joining us and showing off your love for Colorado Rockies baseball. Until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.